And rise and shine, Highlander. Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning, America.
Well, this is interesting. This is the first show we've ever done in the morning. I guess, that's okay. We had a conversation where we're having trouble scheduling the show. And Ryan said, "Can we just get this over with? I'm sick. I can't think about Highlander anymore. I just can't do it." And that made me laugh. But I said, "Well, we're both flexible guys. As you guys all know, this is our full-time job, doing live streams on movies. So we were able to get a little reprieve here and come up with a morning show. And today we're going to be talking about Highlander, which is a film series that I recommended to Ryan and was surprised he had not seen or ever really engaged with. But the first Highlander film is I'm a fan of it. I really enjoy it. I've been thinking about trying to do a video on Highlander for a very long time. And I suppose in our conversation today, I'll kind of discover whether or not that will be possible. If I have enough ideas there that are original or matter. But I guess first off, Ryan, considering you're the new guy to the Highlander series, what was your impression of the first one? Did you like it? Were you glad that I brought you into the world of Highlander here?
Yeah, so the first film is excellent. I enjoyed it very much, and I have very nice things to say about it. The sequels are a mixed bag for sure. And I think I don't know that I've ever been so pumped up and then so exhausted in such a short period of time by one franchise as I have been by Highlander. From going, peaking and going to extreme valleys within, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of experiencing these movies. It's just it was always found it to be kind of like a daunting franchise to tackle in the first place. I'd always heard about it, but it seems like one of those Dimension Films franchises that just never seems to die. There's always a million more sequels out there, like Children of the Corn or Hellraiser or one of these other things. And I know the first ones are not Dimension, but it was later assumed by them and pumped out many more sequels. So and it's still not dead. Where they are, Amazon MGM is currently making a Highlander remake reboot starring Henry Cavill and Russell Crowe. So that will be out. It does not have a release date planned yet.
Which I actually have high hopes for, and I think could be a lot of fun. I think that is not a bad idea. The only problem is that the basic premise and ideas of Highlander have been mined to death and are no longer original. That's the thing about the first Highlander film, which, by the way, I wanted to mention before we get into it, really the perception of Highlander. It's got a perception as being kind of a low-class franchise for really bottom-of-the-barrel nerds, right? And that happens when you pump out a million sequels and a TV show, which admittedly I haven't seen, but it doesn't look good, right? And then a fourth movie where the TV show guy and the main dude from the films get together. It just has kind of this perception of being exhausted to okay, that's the big problem with these films, and we've had this discussion, but it's over after the first one. There's really nowhere else to go. Yet they keep beating the dead horse with a variety of results. In my opinion, some of the sequels, a lot of them have redeeming value, which we'll talk about today. But it just has this perception of really, you're into Highlander, the first one. And that's the reason why I stayed away from the franchise for a long time. But I was being encouraged by older film fans that were no, the first Highlander is a dope movie. And I think it is. And I guess we could jump right into the first Highlander with a synopsis here. Highlander, the film, is about a guy named Connor MacLeod who cannot die because he was born as an immortal. Now, what is an immortal? We don't know. It's very mysterious. Why are certain people immortals? We're not sure. Is it an accident of birth? Is it something divine? After all, Highlanders cannot battle each other on holy ground, right? So it's this very mysterious thing, but we find out that there are many different immortals from all over the world. And one day, as Sean Connery says, that you will feel an immense pull towards a faraway land where we must fight for the prize. And so there can be only one. They all must battle and cut each other's heads off, which is the only way to kill an immortal, until one is left, and then they will receive the mysterious prize. So we follow Connor MacLeod. We have it's an engaging series of flashbacks that are held together by these incredible cinematic transitions, which is one of my favorite parts of the original Highlander film, is all the ways that they're able to transition from MacLeod's life as a Scottish clansman on the Highlands in the 1600s to his state today in modern New York, where he lives as an antique collector and is constantly being attacked by people who want to cut his head off. So, Ryan, thoughts on the first Highlander film, your first impressions?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It feels very epic in scope. It feels very comic book in style and execution, in terms of this could have been a long lost comic book character that they adapted onto the screen. It definitely fills all the tropes that I look for in that type of character adventure. I just, you mentioned a lot of the mythology and the terminology that makes Highlander rather confusing, also, in my opinion. The quickening, the prize, the gathering, all these terms are kind of thrown out at you. And I don't think on one viewing necessarily, unless you're paying extremely close attention to everything, you can quite grasp what all these things mean. Does it really matter? No, I don't think so, because you're caught up in the kind of majesty of the fight scenes. You're caught up in the vibes of the relationships between the characters. And I think there's a lot here aesthetically that makes up for kind of narrative pitfalls.
Well, you said that it's a sort of has a grand feeling, which it does, because it borrows a trick from like the Terminator film, another low budget '80s action movie, right? If we think of that first film, divorced from what it became, it's a movie where there's a grand, epic, secret war for the future, right? So there's great stakes, but it doesn't have to be this. It's just guys running around fighting each other with swords, but there's existential world-changing stakes on the line, right? So it's a nice little low-budget trick. And I think the great thing about Highlander for me that I really enjoy is the direction of Russell Mulcahy, who we both are fans of his film The Shadow, which we've talked about before. The guy was one of the really early masters of the music video. He did all of Duran Duran's music videos. He was a star on MTV. This was his second movie after he did the movie Razorback in his home country of Australia, which is a movie that's just like exploding with style and way ahead of its time. And for a film about a killer pig is like an absolutely beautiful, just sensual, fantastic, awesome experience. I would recommend people watch Razorback if you haven't seen it. And I feel like there's diminishing returns with that explosion of style as Mulcahy's career goes on. But there's a lot of great stuff here, stuff that really just like pops out at you. Like the opening sequence where we're introduced to Connor McLeod, we get this like incredible crane shot of him watching this wrestling match, and we slowly dolly in on him hiding in the crowd with this like strip of light igniting Connor's eyes. And I guess like something else we should talk about too when it comes to Highlander is our star, Christopher Lambert, who another thing that really makes this series unique is his presence. He's a very unique, non-traditional actor. There's something animalistic about him that's sort of appealing. And whenever he's fighting or scraping to survive, it really works. But when it comes to like romantic line deliveries, it's something that he's a very strange actor. Do you see what I'm saying? What's your impression of him?
Oh, very much. I don't know that it's limited only to romantic line deliveries. I would say almost any line delivery is awkward and strange. And I think it really works to this movie's benefit as the first movie in the series, or what should have or could have been potentially the only film in the series. I think he works really well as this enigmatic figure, because we as the audience are going into this cold. We have no knowledge of this world. And so as a mysterious protagonist there, that gives you something to hook onto. I think it has diminishing returns, like you said, in sequels where now we know him and we're still doing this kind of Mr. Mysterioso act, and it gets kind of old after a while. But yeah, he's very aloof, he's very strange, very weird, and I think it works well, especially like in those scenes where he's being interrogated by the police. And they're giving him a lot of crap, and he's just giving it back to them with this very droll, very dry delivery, and it works.
I remember the scene when they first arrest him after he has the fight in the parking garage, which is terrific. And like, there's another thing that calls attention to himself when the sunglasses are dropped on the ground and you see the reflection of the guy coming at him with the sword. Because in that moment, that's a great sequence, because you're thinking to yourself, if you're a first-time viewer, what the hell are these guys doing? I mean, if you're a first-time viewer of Highlander, you're not familiar with the lore, you're watching this sequence. There's two guys fighting with swords in a parking garage. One of them cuts the head off of the other. When he dies, electricity explodes throughout the place. Lightning ignites all of these cars. The horns go off. Glass explodes. It's incredibly cool. You had to be thinking as a viewer the first time, like, what is this about? But when Connor gets slammed onto the cop car, he just looks like incredibly fierce. He's like this force of nature. And Christopher Lambert, I don't know. I've not actually seen him in any other movies to my knowledge, but it's a very strange journey to screen stardom for him. And obviously he found his niche. But
what's also great about those two scenes is when you're talking about the police car scene, he's soaking wet and his hair is completely drenched, and the water is just dripping off of him. And as they slam him, you see all of this, and it just kind of adds a more palpable feel to it. But to go back to the actual fight scene in the garage, that starts the movie off with a huge bang, and it's choreographed and styled so well, as I think to the benefit of the movie, having a music video director adds this level of kinetic energy that you wouldn't see in any other kind of movie at the time. I mean, you're talking about them basically having this sword fight for a lot of it on top of a row of parked cars in the parking garage. They're slicing open water pipes above them, so water is spraying down on them. There's mist in the air. It adds a definite level of atmosphere to this fight, which is already intense as it is, and then electrifying at the end where everything just explodes.
Another great element of this movie too is the inclusion of Sean Connery, who we meet in flashbacks, and he is like this Spanish prince who trains Connor in the way of sword fighting and also teaches him about who he is, which are some of my favorite moments in the film. I mean, they're all exposition, but they really work. I love that scene when they're on the beach and he's explaining to him the quickening, which is this kind of it's sort of this like force-like feeling of you're able to feel all of the feelings of the animals. Do you feel the heartbeat of the deer? And then we have Connor, Christopher Lambert going, I feel it. And they're running on the beach and they're like jumping off cliffs. And there's just,
feels very Rocky 3, doesn't it?
It feels very Rocky 3, but it also just feels like, I don't know, it kind of makes you happy to be alive. Like those scenes pump me up. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's kind of like this great, it's almost a coming of age thing of like discovering your power and meeting the world. And there's, the music by Michael Kamen is incredible and unmatched within the rest of the series. And the fact that some of his themes like don't come back. I mean, we have a very pedestrian routine score by Stuart Copeland for part 2. And it's a shame that we didn't carry over those Michael Kamen themes because they're incredible. And also the soundtrack has never gotten like an official release, like of the full score, which is a real shame. But Sean Connery also explains to McLeod that there can be evil immortals as well, which is the Kurgan, who is played by Mr. Krabs, Clancy Brown. Yeah,
also Lex Luthor from Superman the Animated Series.
Okay, there you go. But he's like this evil, depraved, insane person who kills.
Can we just focus on Sean Connery for a little bit, because this is like, I think the two most important characters of the movie are Sean Connery as Ramirez and then Clancy Brown as the Kurgan. But to stay on Connery for a second, this is the most ridiculous character like ever created, in my opinion. Like it's so bizarre, but it works really well for this movie, and it adds a breath of fresh air because he has such a flair and a kind of a flamboyance to him. So he said he's a Spaniard, which is not accurate, I think, even though he has a Spanish name. He tells him at one point he's Egyptian.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah.
Yes. I think he moved to Spain and then also Japan at some point in his immortal life, but that's where he probably adopted the Spanish name. And then, of course, he's got the Scottish accent. So it's like this ridiculous, combination of different ethnic traits, which is funny. And if you notice, he's like dressed like a conquistador. That's his outfit. Right. He's kind of like a Spanish conquistador. And then at the beginning, he actually comes with this like peacock draped around him, like a peacock stole. So it's just an entirely ridiculous character that adds a different level of kind of like tongue-in-cheek humor to the movie. There's just one of my favorite moment in the film is with Sean Connery, where he arrives and he meets
Connor McLeod, and he goes, "McLeod, we are the same. We are brothers." And then Michael Kamen's score just like crescendos, and the rain is coming down, and we cut back to New York City, modern day. And I'm just like, this is just great. And Sean Connery also is a permission structure for normies to watch the movie, because it's like, hey, Sean Connery's in it, and he's in it very briefly. I'm sure he was paid very well, but he has a really lasting impression on the film. So much so if they felt the need to bring him back in part 2, even though he died. I'll be interested to see if Russell Crowe will be wearing the same conquistador Francisco Pizarro outfit in the new film. I would guess perhaps not, but
and what kind of accent will he be using?
Will he have? Who knows? But I think Russell Crowe, that's a fun little Superman, Man of Steel reunion there with Russell Crowe and Henry Cavill.
Oh, yeah. Didn't even think about that. Yeah. Jor-El and Superman, yeah.
But Henry Cavill is just the kind of weird guy who would be like really into Highlander and want to bring it back. I'm just curious if they have sequel plans, if they've cracked the idea for the sequel, if they think they can keep this going as a franchise.
Gotta redo Highlander to The Quickening. Do it right this time.
Exactly.
Save the ozone layer.
Well, as you were telling me earlier, you thought they did it right the first time. I remember you really enjoyed it. So anyway, the film was written by a guy named Gregory Wyden, who, if you guys go on his Facebook page, is actually really cool. He has obviously like a private collection of like Polaroids and photos of all the movies he's worked on and been a part of. So he was a very successful, I'd say, screenwriter. He wrote Highlander out of film school. And he was obviously on set somewhat. He's got photos of himself being around. He also wrote the film Backdraft, the firefighter movie. And then I think most interestingly for Highlander fans, he wrote this film called Prophecy and directed it, which is a movie that's very similar to Highlander, though it's like very dark and like kind of 90s grim. It's also a Dimension film. And it spawned like 6 sequels, 3 of which have Christopher Walken playing the evil Angel Gabriel. I've watched it a few years ago. I don't remember much about it other than it being sort of like dour and miserable, but it's got a good cast. It's got Elias Koteas in it. It's got Rocky Dennis from Pulp Fiction in it. What I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay.
Let's go back to Clancy Brown, because I did cut you off when you were bringing that up. So, in my opinion, this is a very underappreciated or under talked about villainous performance from the 80s. Like, never hear about Clancy Brown as the Kurgan. In my opinion, like, it should be on some top 10 lists here. The intensity and the like psychosis of this villain is probably like unparalleled amongst many other films. Is just completely bonkers, completely crazy. And they infuse him with that kind of Mad Max punk rock style that was big at the time. And it makes him look even more menacing. Like, he has this, he has that like very animalistic hood in the 1500s where he's, riding around on the horse and he's slaying people. But then when he goes into modern times, he adopts the punk rock leather outfit. Yeah,
he has like a really cool like skull helmet. Like, he looks sweet.
Yeah.
And that's something, too, we talked about, is that, like, Russell Mulcahy was obviously Australian. There's a strain throughout all these films of, like, that weird Australian humor that you see in Mad Max, this sort of, like, inexplicable, weird, like, goofy, maniacal, like, almost like frenetic goblin characters, for lack of a better phrase. But, like, that appears here, and, like,
very much in part 2 as well.
Yeah, very much in part 2, where like everyone is very irreverent and strange and everything's a joke. The police officers obviously have a big hoot and laugh about everyone getting their head cut off. There's strange moments in the film where like Clancy Brown is fighting a guy, another immortal, in an alleyway, and some dude that like it's very bizarre.
The Punisher appears in the movie. Yes.
He's obviously some kind of survivalist, anti-communist, like guy, terrorist, I don't know, but he like sees Clancy Brown fighting and he wants to get in on the action and gets a sword through his stomach, and you're like, the film world is populated with like these strange weirdos who don't require an explanation. Do you know what I'm saying? This, like, we don't need to know why, like, oh yeah, this is what America's like. There are guys, there are like John Birch Society vigilantes that just go around, and they'll be in the movie, and that'll be that. It's but you brought up Clancy Brown not being like, a villain that's been remembered, because obviously so many people grasp for this playbook of like, oh, as the villain, I'll just be like completely insane. But like, I don't think Highlander gets mentioned a lot in conversations about films in the 80s, which is kind of unfair. It kind of lives outside of it. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, completely agree. Completely agree. That just to go back to that scene, I just that one stuck in my mind as just like, what is going on in this movie? Because it just randomly cuts to a character we've never been introduced to. He's driving around in the car. He's loaded up with weapons everywhere, and he's just cruising around the city. And he just happens to find a fight that's ongoing in the midst of an alleyway, and then he riddles Clancy Brown with bullets before he is unceremoniously killed. It just baffles my mind. Like, what were they thinking to just include this? Like, wonder what that conversation was like.
So we want to talk about too, like the idea of Connor McLeod being an immortal who lives forever, and we get sort of amusing flashbacks to his various times in World War II and in Victorian England, etc. And I was bringing this up. I mean, obviously, the most famous sort of immortal person who's like fought throughout the years or whatever now in modern pop culture is like Wolverine. So it's like been done. But I was curious, did you ever discover kind of like when it was announced that Wolverine in the comics was this immortal guy who lived forever? It had to be post Highlander, right?
I think
Had to be a
so.
rip off of this.
I should have researched this because we talked about this beforehand.
Yeah.
When was he discovered as immortal? I want to say it's not until like the 2000s or something like that when they did that horrible Wolverine origin story. You know what I mean? Where he was like in the Old West, but I don't know for sure. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, just curious because I feel like this is. I mean, obviously there are examples from previous like entertainment, like literature, like Rip Van Winkle or something. But other than that, I feel like they were kind of on the cutting edge with this. Which is cool, but it was not a big hit in the theater. It was really one of the first big hits on home video in the early nascent market of home video. It was probably one of the first examples of a film that was so popular on home video that it got a sequel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have another example of that, but no, the film is my other favorite element of the Highlander series, and this is something that you see when you watch it, is you're waiting for like specific elements to reoccur that you appreciate about the last film. But like obviously Connor McLeod fights the Kurgan at the finale in front of this big red neon sign, and then at the end he cuts off his head and an explosion of lightning and wind energizes McLeod and the windows explode and it looks like a music video, and it's just incredible. There can be only one. You're just like, let's go. This is sick. And it's revealed that Connor, the prize is that he gets all ultimate knowledge and like omnipotence. And then that's over. Then the movie's over, right? And there's really...
Am I mistaken that the prize also was that you get to choose whether or not you become mortal and can grow old? Is that not also implied that he then chooses? Am I making this up?
I think you're right.
That he becomes mortal and decides to start a family with the forensic scientist that he gives up. Yeah.
Who, by the way, I liked and gets short shrift in every sequel. This woman that Connor, falls in love with,
right.
Who's the modern woman, a police officer, forensic scientist.
Well, I think that's because though they do focus a lot on his 1500s wife, who I think means more to him throughout the eons than whoever he's hooking up with nowadays. I mean, the fact that he still lights a candle on the birthday of his first wife, through the centuries, shows that there is a long-lasting love that burns within him. And that, I think, is some of where the movie really also works very well, is that it does strike this more tender, sentimental note with that aspect of his character. It shows him as this compassionate, caring person. So I like that. I also like when they show, it's very limited, but they show the relationship between him and his secretary, who I guess is playing his adopted daughter. It's and they show how they met, and that's when he was in World War II. He saved a young girl from the Nazis and basically adopted her and took her in, and that, now she's an older woman at that point. But I wish the sequels had focused more on these other like nuggets in his timeline, in his history. Like, there's obviously a lot there, and that's what a sequel could have done to explore the mythology of the character rather than do what they did.
Well, I've thought about this a lot because there's two sequels really to Highlander, and then there's a fourth one that's like a cash-in goofball TV tie-in, right? But there's really two, and they both go in different directions. The first one, which are two reasonable directions to go in. The second film in the series, The Quickening, decides we need to expound on the lore, and we're going to take it in a completely different direction. And then the third one says we're going to like remake the first one again. Yeah, right. We're going to kind of like say there was actually more immortals that we didn't know about, and that's what they're going to do, right? Now, which one you find to be more successful, I suppose, is up for debate. But I guess we can move on to Highlander 2, one of the most notoriously bad sequels of all time. It was just a very notoriously horrible sequel because, you know, the series leaves open a lot of questions, which I don't think needed an answer. But fans were wondering, where did the immortals come from? What are they? And the film, the sequel, decided to answer that by saying that they were aliens from the planet Zeiss. Now, you wouldn't know that if you watched the home video release that is widely available today, because all of that stuff, references to the planet Zeiss, have been removed, which makes the opening sequence of part 2 disjointed and strange and confusing, because we're being led to believe that they're just from like a super older time. But, you know, there's a lot to get into when it comes to Highlander 2. But Ryan, what did you think of it?
You know, I actually like this. I thought it was wildly entertaining and bizarre in all the right ways, and I don't really have a problem with it. I think we don't have the luxury of having seen the theatrical cut for comparison. We're only talking about the so-called renegade version, which is widely available now. But I don't see how this is any worse than kind of your average movie of this time period, in my opinion. I didn't mind it at all. I have a bigger problem with part 3. I thought that was horrible.
Get out of town. So I put myself in the shoes of like if you were a big Highlander fan and you were like, finally, Highlander 2, The Quickening, let's go, looks sick. And then you go to see this movie that is like, I agree with you, wildly creative, but totally out of left field, really, from the first movie, even though it does parallel the first movie in a lot of ways. The opening sequence is very, very similar. We get a flashback sequence tied in with Connor McLeod in a theater watching some kind of performance, right? And then we have obviously fights with immortals where heads are being cut off, etc. But it's such a strange film. I mean, the premise of the film is that basically Connor McLeod, his love from the first film has died. In the intermittent time between this and Highlander 2, 50 or so years have passed. It's the future. Connor McLeod is old and decrepit.
Oh, may I read the opening title cards that summarize?
Yeah, fair enough.
The year is 2024. Industrial pollution has destroyed the ozone layer, leaving the planet at the mercy of the sun's ultraviolet rays. An electromagnetic shield now protects the Earth. A small group believes that the ozone layer has repaired itself and that the shield is no longer necessary, but no one knows for sure.
Yeah. If you were, I would be like, am I in the wrong? Is this a Highlander? What the fuck? Right. But it's like, to me, it feels like there was a script somewhere called The Dome, which was about like, do you know what I'm saying? And they were like, well, shit, what if we just like put Highlander in that? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I haven't found any proof that that was the case. This movie was not written by Gregory Wyden. He was not asked to come back. But I don't know. It leaves a lot of unanswered questions. It's a very atmospheric, good-looking movie. I think we both like the parts where Connor is old. I think it's kind of interesting. And then the evil Michael Ironside from the past or from the other planet decides out of the blue, you know what? we got to kill Connor McLeod. So he sends his two like goblin, little devilish goblin like devotee people who reminded me a lot actually of the two like white dreadlock ghost guys from the Matrix 2.
Yes.
Sends them back to kill Connor McLeod, and they have a pretty like cool, ingenious fight scene, kind of a takeoff of Back to the Future 2, where they're flying around on hoverboard skateboards and they're fighting. That was interesting.
Yeah, no, right? That's a great scene. That's an excellent scene. That's probably the best action scene in the movie. It's highly original and highly entertaining. To go back to what you were saying about not making any sense, which it doesn't. I took it to I when I watched this for the first time, I was like, okay, I thought they were in the past when they have the scenes where all the people are meeting together and it looks like the Council of Krypton, basically.
Yeah.
And then you see Connor is there, Ramirez is there, Michael Ironside is there. I took that because obviously Ramirez is dead, and
Yeah.
you know, Connor, we know him to be from current time. So I figured this has to be in the past. This is some kind of old grudge that happened, and they have some kind of maybe magic time portal that allows them to go back and forth. Because then we're talking about we're in the future. We're in 2024, and you know, obviously that hadn't come to pass yet. So that's where I got the kind of the time travel thing from. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense because, like, first of all, so Ramirez and Connor were led to believe were exiled to Earth by Michael Ironside for revolting against Michael Ironside's evil immortals. But even on the planet Zeiss, their names are still McLeod and Ramirez, which doesn't make any sense. Why would a guy from another planet be named Ramirez? Why wouldn't his name be like Gula and like they send him back to Earth and like his memory would have had to be wiped, right? Connor didn't remember any of this stuff. But then all of a sudden he's having flashbacks where he does remember it. It doesn't make any sense. This should have been a revelation to him that he was an alien, right? That would have maybe given Michael Ironside something to do in the film. But as it stands, Michael Ironside decides to come to Earth or come into the future or whatever, right? However you want to read it. And then he decides to join the evil Dome, which, by the way, oh my God, this is the craziest movie of all time. Connor invented the Dome with like his Steve Wozniak dude. And like, do you know what I mean?
And then the people are resentful. The citizens of Earth are resentful of Connor for having created the Dome, which supposedly saved them.
It made everything nighttime at night, and it looks like horrible and depressing and like dark.
Yeah,
like,
but
the whole movie is so dark.
Would they have rather just burned up from the ozone layer? You know,
but it turns out though that the Dome is evil because the Dome controllers are still keeping it open. They're still keeping the Dome going because they want to make money.
Yeah, but that's besides the point. Like, that's a separate issue. It doesn't negate the fact that the Dome was apparently necessary. Do you think Connor would have created the Dome for evil machinations otherwise? I don't think so.
No, he didn't. He did it to begin. And what he did to help make the Dome is unclear.
Yes.
But
wait, can we go back to the whole thing about them being on the other planet versus in the past? Not where they are makes no difference, but the entire idea is that Michael Ironside sends them to Earth in exile. Why does he do that versus why doesn't he just kill them then? Why does he decide later that he needs to kill them? Like,
so the movie can happen.
Well, of course.
If you haven't seen this movie, this whole thing about coming from the future or the past or whatever, this might be confusing. The original film, it was revealed that the immortals were from the planet Zeiss, right? Now, this was a very contentious thing for the fans. Everybody hated this. So the only version available you can buy today is a sort of director's cut, or they call it the renegade cut or whatever, where this is fixed. Also, the special effects are fixed. There's a lot of features on the Blu-ray about how they went back and changed some of the special effects. The movie was shot in Javier Milei's country, Argentina.
Oh, Argentina, yeah.
Yeah, and they did that because they thought the dollar was stronger, and then all of a sudden there was a little economic change, and the dollar became weaker or not as strong, etc. So they were like woefully over budget. So I guess the bank that was funding it took control of the film and had a cheaper effects house finish all the effects. So in the original film, the sky is red. It's been changed to blue. Some of the special effects have been fixed. But in my opinion, I'm like, who the fuck cares? Like, where's this money coming from to repair Highlander 2 in like the year 2007 or 8? I have no idea. And why the original isn't, available on home video is strange. I mean, just for posterity, we should be able to see one of the worst sequels of all time in its entirety, correct?
I agree completely. I would love to be able to compare and contrast to see how, I mean, does this actually fix anything? I mean, we're watching this movie and we're guessing how it changed things, but like I'd like to see it for myself.
No, I have the VHS actually.
Oh, do you? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So did you watch it?
Yeah, I have. It's been a long time, and I don't have my
Okay.
VHS player set up anymore. But I remember seeing it. I remember it being red. When I watched this version, I was like, "Oh, it's like different," you know. But go ahead.
I was going to say, what did you think of the movie's timely environmentalism message? Got to
Great.
protect the ozone layer, man.
Yeah, that was like, that was very big. But I mean, then it's revealed that the ozone layer repaired itself, which is, I suppose, somewhat,
I guess
reactionary idea.
I guess they missed the memo that the 1987 Montreal Protocol phased out CFCs, the chlorofluorocarbons that were depleting the ozone layer. So they missed that part.
Is that true? Is that real? Or is that
Yes,
lore? Is that Highlander lore? Or is
that's
that real
Highlander
science?
lore. Yes.
Okay. Okay, because we forgot to mention Virginia Madsen, who's in this film too, have sex with Connor McLeod in an alleyway and be a revolutionary terrorist against the dome.
I
That's
think
about
probably the film history's quickest sex scene, would you say?
it. Yeah. That's what the quickening means. That's what it's all about.
I think so.
But anyway, yeah, we have Ramirez returning in this film also, inexplicably. Connor
It's great
basically
though. It's amazing.
he makes a wish.
That made the movie for me. That and Michael Ironside made the movie.
Yeah, if Sean Connery wasn't in the movie for the brief
Oh, yeah.
moments that he is, it'd be in a lot worse shape. And as much as we like Michael Ironside, I felt like he was trying to one up the Kurgan a little bit, and it didn't really work because his plan is stupid. I mean, he's this like all-knowing immortal god basically from another planet or from the future, and then he comes back to kill Connor McLeod for no reason, and then he decides, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in on this dome thing.
Yeah.
Right? He goes, I want the money. Right?
Well, because they have to have the two plots intersect at some point, even though they are totally incongruous on their own. They have to find a way to incorporate them together. So why not?
The great scene with Michael Ironside is when he like takes over the public train, and he's just like driving it like a bat out of hell, and like
yes,
yeah, he's driving the train. We've got like heavy metal rock music playing, and like everyone in the back of the train is like exploding and blowing up and it's crazy. I think there was a guy like picture Arnold from Total Recall when his eyes bug out of his head. That's like what was happening to everybody on the back of the train. There was just like a cavalcade of like makeup effects and shit as all these poor citizens are being just completely destroyed.
Well, also when he attacks random people on the subway train, right? I distinctly remember there's the guy that has the eye patch over his eye where he's watching like Godzilla or something else like that. And he
it's like some future tech,
Yeah.
But
very cool stuff.
Yeah, the movie looks cool. It's like got a good cinematography is good. Ultimately, all of this storm and drong about a fucking dome and everything. Guess what happens at the end? Two guys have a sword fight and one guy gets his head cut off. And that's, you know what I mean?
Of course, as it should be.
Though there are some memorable moments with Sean Connery, like when they break into the dome and they just decide how they're going to do this is just to drive their car straight through all the soldiers and just get obliterated with bullets, which is a great scene.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I thought you were going to say the other memorable moments with Sean Connery are his wardrobe fitting scenes and his adventures on an airplane for the first time.
I mean, they obviously had Sean Connery for like 2 days max, 2 or 3, And there's going to be like 3 scenes with you and Connor McLeod, but to like pad out your screen time in this film, we'll have you get fitted for a suit and like be on a plane. They cut back to him on a plane like twice.
Yes.
Where he's like on a plane.
It's adding some much needed comic relief, to the movie.
I suppose, it's a good, but yeah, the movie is unique. It's, I could see that if you watch this in the early 90s, hoping for a really good Highlander sequel, you'd be like, come on, man.
Well, it also fits in a lot hindsight. For comparison to other movies of the time, it definitely incorporates that kind of like retro futurism to the urban landscape, kind of like Blade Runner, Batman, 1989. You have that kind of dystopian hellscape, urban setting. There's like a very forced perspective everywhere. The buildings are very imposing, and this is kind of like another one in that mold, and that's very appealing.
I agree, and it's got one of the greatest. I don't know what you would call this when the one immortal absorbs the powers of the other. When he kills those 2 dudes on the glider on the hoverboards, Connor, and he's old,
Yeah.
and the lightning just sparks and kicks this can up and like
Yeah.
runs around the rim of a tire and shoots it off the car and like and everything explodes and he turns young again and comes out of the fire and he's like the Highlander we remember and love. Except for the one thing I didn't like is I didn't like how he had long hair in this film. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Lambert,
I didn't mind it. Didn't mind it.
Okay. I mean, it's very rock and roll, very heavy metal. I get it. It's very of its time. But like, but no, that was one of the great sequences. And I don't think Mulcahy was ever matched in that department when the Highlanders absorbed the power, which is such a fun element of the series. You know, I think that's such a great. I always look forward to that when it happens in these films. But any other thoughts on? Go ahead.
Should we mention Roger Ebert's infamous review of the film? He
What did he
famously
say?
gave the movie 0.5 stars.
Oh, come on.
Highlander 2: The Quickening is the most hilariously incomprehensible movie I've seen in many a long time. A movie almost awesome in its badness. Wherever science fiction fans gather in decades and generations to come, the film will be remembered in hushed tones as one of the immortal low points of the genre. If there is a planet somewhere whose civilization is based on the worst movies of all time, Highlander 2: The Quickening deserves a sacred place amongst their most treasured artifacts.
That's awesome.
That's great.
I think that's a little unfair though, because there's a lot to like about this movie. It's just kind of, I don't know, man. You're just like, you're kind of thinking like, what? How did this get? Why did
How this get made, and
how'd this get made?
who was the audience for this? And I mean, I would have enjoyed. I enjoyed it now. I probably would have enjoyed it at the time.
Yeah, I could. Yeah,
I don't mind if a sequel necessarily contradicts the first movie if it's being made by the same creative team. If it's a wholly original concept and you're in charge of it and you're making the sequel and you want to change things up, I don't have a problem with that. I have more of a problem when that's like an existing established film series or franchise and you just come in and you want to change things for your own benefit. Then I have a problem with that. But this is like, feel free to do whatever you want, man.
I totally agree with you. And Mulcahy was back directing. Obviously, Wyden wasn't there for the script, which is unfortunate. He was just never asked to be involved ever again in the series that he created. But I tried to get a hold of him actually because he's on Facebook. I sent him a message to see if he would talk to me, but haven't heard back. Maybe some of you guys, if anybody knows Gregory Wyden, tell him we're big fans. But this is a movie where they thought, where the hell do you go with this? He defeated all the immortals. He has all the power. What even would be a sequel? And you could either repeat the first one, play it safe, or you could just take a giant swing for something completely out of the box. And they did that. And because I think that there was somewhere to go with where the immortals came from. There was maybe more mysteries to be revealed, but it sure as hell isn't they're from a fucking another planet, because that doesn't make any, why can't the Highlanders fight on holy ground? You're led to believe that there's something mystical within the realm of like, earthly religion or supernatural experiences to be had. Having them be aliens, that ain't it, Chief. You know what I mean?
I think there's plenty of possibilities and opportunities for other villains that don't necessarily need to be other immortals. Obviously, that would be like, I think about other comic book franchises or characters. Think about like the X-Men, for instance. Not every villain has to be a mutant necessarily that they fight. That would be their special secret sauce and the main thing that they do. But there's other offshoot villains of other avenues that can also be explored. And so you could have had any number of villainous characters for Connor to fight here, or maybe find some kind of offshoot of the immortals. Here is a secret sect that existed only in this part, or we went underground literally, or maybe we did go to outer space. Maybe we had some contact with aliens and we were an offshoot group. You could think of any number of different things to do.
Well, it's like I think about the title for the third Highlander film, which I think what was it called in America? It's called The Sorcerer in Europe.
Yeah, there's two different. I saw it as Highlander: The Final Dimension.
Yeah, it was The Final Dimension in America. But you think about this idea of the sorcerer, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe instead of immortals, perhaps we're sorcerers and we've been against the immortals throughout time and we have power too that's different, but we're also, just do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Or we the sorcerers are the creators of the immortals. We're the kind of ancient people that live in even more secrecy, and we created you, and now we're going to come in to destroy you.
Exactly. Simple enough. But in the third film, they decided to kind of go for a repeat of the first one. And there's a big jump, which is that basically the third movie is the first kind of like soft reboot, maybe ever. It's the first film that asks its audience to forget that a previous sequel occurred. So what do you call that? It's happened in every horror film, that Halloween H2O, there's so many examples of this.
Oh,
like
retcon, retroactive continuity.
This is really, even though it's called Highlander 3, it's really Highlander 2. Forget about Highlander 2, The Quickening. This is the real sequel. And they ask you to like take a very large bite of something, which is not all the immortals were killed. 3 of them got trapped in a cave for like 400 years. And now there's more, actually. They didn't get them all the first time.
Yeah.
And that makes the film feel like it has sort of low stakes and that it's sort of a cheap retcon. However, I found Highlander 3 to be very entertaining. I just want to hear your thoughts on Highlander 3.
I don't know what you found very entertaining about this movie, but I found it to be completely boring, uninteresting, flat, ugly.
Flat and ugly? What do you
what? It has all the kind of slick and sleek like corporate 90s filmmaking style to it that I just did not appreciate at all.
It was
feels like a direct-to-video movie almost in my book. I'm surprised it was theatrically released. The fact that the movie just remakes the first movie and less good. So do you think the villain, okay, so first of all, is the villain better in part 3 than it is in part 1? No. Is the mentor character better in part 3 than in part 1? No. Is the love interest better? I mean, it's equivocal. I mean, there's definitely better sex scene in this movie.
That's true.
And are the action scenes better in this movie? I don't think so. Not necessarily. And what does this movie really do different? It adds a kid sidekick who is Connor's son that he's fighting for. And it's like, okay, cool. That didn't do anything for me. And Mako is not in enough of the movie to make it kind of use that as your kind of ace in the hole there. He's barely in it. So it didn't do much for me.
I think what the Highlander films do best when they're really working is they have this like ephemeral feeling. Like that's why I talked about earlier. I love that scene so much with Sean Connery when they're barefoot on the beach, they're running, they're feeling their power. They can absorb everything, the heartbeat of the stag, right? The quickening, we're alive. It's sort of a celebration of life and power and achievement and winning, which is what I think is cool. And it's got this like there's a tactileness about the human body in Highlander that I think is good, that I think gets lost in the plot of the second movie, right? And this idea of like connection to the earth, which we see with like the creation of swords and like being on a big mountaintop with a helicopter flying around as you train with your sword. Like that's all the stuff that I really enjoy. And I think that this movie has a lot of that. I think that Andy Morahan, another music video director who was brought in to revivify the Highlander series, think about all those moments in Mako's cave with like water. And, I think I like about Andy Morahan too, is he wasn't precious about like his own filmmaking vision. He was like, what worked about the first Highlander? My job is to like recreate that. And he did a great job. He does the wonderful transition scenes. There's that great moment where we see, Connor cuts an orange and we get a great flashback to the Reign of Terror in the French Revolution with the head popping into the basket. And I do like this kind of tactile, you could say this is obviously very outdated and lame now, but like this world music feeling, we have a lot of like flutes and stuff, that was very popular in the 90s. I thought that for the most part, look, am I going to recommend this to somebody? No, but like as a fan of the first Highlander film, I thought it was kind of fun to see this like remake. I thought that it looked great. I thought it was a beautiful looking movie. Think about the sequence in the woman in her sort of like, what is she, a fucking archaeologist or whatever, where there's like that red light behind her office and Mario Van Peebles comes. I mean, I thought that was great. I don't know.
There are some good looking moments. And I think I'm thinking specifically of the scenes in the Scottish Highlands. Those are beautiful sequences. I'm just thinking though of the finale of the movie, which takes place basically in what looks like Freddy Krueger's boiler room,
or Terminator 2 boiler room,
or whatever. And it's to me, it looked hideous and ugly.
And the sword fight
didn't appreciate anything. I could, I think I'm used to. Highlander finales and these other movies, the other two movies, there's definitely a cool blue hue to a lot of the climax scenes. Would you agree?
I agree.
Highlander
Yeah,
2 is
Highlander
very,
seems like a
very
cool
cool
blue.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why this movie kind of reminded me a little bit of like Alien 3 in that it goes, okay, we're
Yeah.
gonna go red this time around, because they did. Right? Remember, Alien 3 was just like everything's gonna be like orange now.
Yeah,
You know,
this is a
which I
very
kind of
red, angry kind of movie in terms of its tone and visual tone. And to me, I didn't like it. And also, I think the villain is just very, very weak here.
Mario
Yeah,
Van Peebles.
Mario Van Peebles as Kane.
Highlander,
Yeah, I couldn't even
I'm
understand him half the time. Sorry.
gonna kill you, Highlander.
And also,
I
he
don't
has
know.
the secret power of shapeshifting, and he can shapeshift into birds and other animals.
Yeah, like we said before, what if that was just him? He was just like a shape-shifting sorcerer. He didn't have to be like an immortal, right?
I agree. I
No,
just didn't. I find this movie unmemorable. I'm struggling to remember what happened during the movie. I found it very uninteresting, very by the numbers, and just a retread of something that had been wholly original and much more entertaining and visually interesting in Highlander 1.
there were a lot of elements that I really liked in it that I thought it did well. Um, was it better than the first one? No, but I think that Lambert is probably the best in this film.
Yes,
The
I'll buy
introduction
that.
of it's his best performance as Highlander, I thought. At least it's like, I mean, I don't know, maybe the first one is a better performance for the film, but like this one, he seems like he's grown into like his being a star more. He was a little more, I don't know, I guess well-rounded in terms of his performance. You know, when it asked him to do romantic things, you're gonna say this is stupid, but like I kind of bought the romance a little more in this one than I did in previous films.
Yes, no, I agree.
You know,
I think that's
which
fair.
I think, yeah, I think that's fair. Like, but
It's one of the things the movie does better than the other films. I will
yeah,
give it that. But I think comparatively on the scales, that's much lower down.
well, there's
Compared to
kind of no
everything
reason
else.
for it to exist, you know, and it's just kind of an afterthought. But like that's the story with this whole series. It's like, you know what? I mean, I think the TV show exists in concurrence with the movies. It obviously does, right? Like Connor McLeod is in the first season, but it's like that kind of stuff after a while just like chips away at the credibility of your brand. Where it's like, hey, I saw the first one. There can be only one. He was the one guy. He killed everybody. He won. But then also, there's a TV show reveal he actually had like a fucking cousin or something, and this is his best pal cousin, and he also has adventures too. So it's just, and then also yes, the introduction of the kid who, by the way, looked like this insufferable cool '90s kid with a big coat and baggy pants and a stupid hat or whatever. I mean, come on. He's in one scene. Thankfully, he's like in the beginning. Thankfully, he's not in the movie until he has to be used as a MacGuffin for the battle at the end. But
I don't have a problem with the idea of, I mean, people use this as a criticism for a lot of superhero comic book movies is that, oh, it's the same thing every time. And it's like, yeah, it's always going to be the same thing every time. That's the nature of all kind of serialized fiction characters that are in many sequels. That's not the point. The point is you have to then do something different within the confines of redoing the same story over again, right? Like you have to change enough that the audience feels some kind of satisfaction that they got something different while feeling cozy and comfy within the confines of what we want to see. This didn't, he could have done the same story, had the Japanese angle to it, changed enough things here and there. That's fine. But did Connor, was he different or grow as a character in any different way whatsoever compared to any of the other movies? No. So it's just a watered down version of what we already saw. And that's my problem with it, is that, yes, it's the same thing. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just complaining that like there's nothing enough new here to satisfy me.
well, and then the other thing that I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on was the romance that spans time with the actress, with Deborah Kara Unger. She obviously plays this woman from France that McLeod knew. And then he meets her and they look exactly the same. And I thought at first, I was like, oh, she's an immortal too. I'm like, that's an interesting angle. a woman immortal. They're going to meet up and they're going to be immortals together or something. But then it turned out that they weren't actually the same person, and she just looked like her. So it made him feel good about like finding his
And
lost
played
love.
by the same actress. Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. I thought they were the same person.
I thought they were doing. They didn't do that in the other movies, and I almost thought they were sort of trying to play that angle, which is that the reason that he's maybe necessarily attracted to these women in the modern times is that they do remind him specifically of former lovers in the past, and maybe
Okay.
they're descendants or, reincarnations of those women or something like that. And he feels a strong spiritual connection to them, maybe through his ESP quickening powers. But they don't do such a thing. They don't go that deep.
That's another thing too that like they haven't capitalized on it too, is like the quickening, like the idea of being able to like understand and harness nature and like have this sixth sense.
Yeah.
They don't really know what to do with that. But I felt like there were scenes in this film that were very cool when he's in the institution, and he's like fighting the guy in the basement. I thought that was neat. It's like this weird 1930s like Art Deco futurism weird hospital that kind of reminded me of like Mystery of the Wax Museum or something. I thought that was neat.
Okay.
Obviously, that didn't touch your cold soul, but
No.
okay. Well, I guess I would ask you to close down the Highlander talk today, which has been brief, and I did what you wanted. We did this as soon as possible so you could stop thinking about Highlander, and basically, I guess I'll ask you, since the series is going to go on, what do you think the Highlander remake has to do to be successful?
I think it will be successful because of a number of things. I don't think it's necessarily the actors chosen for the roles. One thing we didn't talk about is who is helming the movie. It's a guy named Chad Stahelski. Yes, the creator of John Wick, the John Wick director. So that will be enough to get butts into the seats for this movie. And if they bring the John Wick energy to Highlander, I think that is enough to sell that movie and to keep it going for multiple sequels going afterwards.
I'm not a huge fan of John Wick. Those films don't really do a whole lot for me, but I could see how this is like a good partnership for a sort of modern Highlander thing.
I will respond to that with, they are much more engaging and interesting when they are not 100% gunplay. When they are gunplay nonstop for John Wick, that's boring to me. When they start actually doing the martial arts and the fighting, hand-to-hand combat, that is where those movies excel exceedingly well, more than any other contemporary action films. And so I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of gunplay in a Highlander movie. I'm sure there will be some, but I expect a lot of swordplay, hand-to-hand combat, and very dynamic action set pieces that I think will be quite good.
I think something else you could do, if you wanted to kind of capitalize on the ideas in the original film, is like show us more immortals. Let's you know what I mean? I love that scene where he meets the guy who's like obviously from Africa or something, and they had met before, and they're somewhat friendly to each other. Like maybe more of that, maybe a little more of like teaming up to stop the bad guy, because you don't want the baddest guy to win the prize. So it's like someone has to sacrifice themselves, but yeah, I don't know, man.
First Highlander film movie. Also kind of be interesting if this what is it called, The Gathering, if it was actually, maybe this is too lame, a structured tournament kind of style, like a Street Fighter Mortal Kombat style event, or like Dragon Ball Z Cell games, where like everyone's lining up and we're all having a giant tournament together and fighting. Too on the nose.
That's a little much, man. Yeah, I think you have to have like these immortals by their very nature, I think would be like fiercely independent, sort of like non-agreeable type people. So like the negotiation about who lives and who dies needs to have a little more dramatic stakes, I think, than simply like a bracket.
There needs to be a sorcerer calling the shots and organizing the brackets.
Yeah. And who do we have? So we've got also the Kurgan is going to be Dave Bautista.
Good choice, I think. He can do crazy very well, and so I think that's a very inspired choice for that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I think these are solid casting choices. I think Henry Cavill is a good choice for Connor. He has that very harsh, kind of stern facial demeanor. Like I don't think that did not serve him well as Superman, in my opinion. I think that works better for a harder edge character like this, who's not meant to be kind of like a comforting, compassionate character like Superman. You need someone
Absolutely.
softer, like what's his name, David Cornsweet.
I
Was a
agree.
better choice. But for Highlander, I think Henry Cavill is a great choice.
Check this out. We have Jeremy Irons in the new film as the leader of the Watchers, who are fated to observe and record the deeds of the immortals. Okay, so there you go. You have a branch off thing that's like another element that can be, yeah, okay.
Yep. I think they're fixing a little bit of the, greasing the wheels,
setting it up for sequels. Yeah. Okay.
Well, hey man, this is completely down for this. It looks great.
I am too. I've always liked Henry Cavill. I'd like him to find something that really sticks for him and works, Anyway, Highlander.
So are you going to explore the other sequels and the TV show?
No.
Since you're a big fan?
I don't think so. I am a big fan. Big fan of Highlander 1. Just really think it's a movie with a lot of exuberance and creativity.
And I'm proud to now own it thanks to you on 4K. And I'll give it a shot in the future again.
That's phenomenal. Well, I wanted to do this live stream too as an opportunity to see, like, do I have anywhere to go with like a review video on Highlander? And I don't know, it's giving me a lot to think about.
Okay, good. I look forward to that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Well, hey, thanks for joining me on this early morning, man. This has been interesting and fun. And we had a few viewers on here waking up, driving to work. As you know, we're lucky enough to be full-time podcasters, so we don't have to worry about such things. Yeah, but absolutely. I'm glad you were flexible. This is great. And what'll be our next show? I don't know.
We have a couple ideas. We discussed Spielberg sci-fi. I think would be a great topic to discuss in the build-up to Disclosure Day.
Okay, I was going to go a little more hardline and say Spielberg aliens.
Spielberg aliens. Sorry, yes.
So that we have to watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think we do that closer to the release of the film. Which, I mean, are you looking forward to?
Oh yeah, I'm always down for new Spielberg. You got to give him a shot. It may not.
The trailers
may not come through in the end, but come on, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
You know what's been killing me about Spielberg for the past 15 years or so is I don't like Janusz Kaminski's cinematography at all. I hate it. He's got to try something new. He's got to get with somebody else.
He's set in his ways, but I think he deserves. I think he always deserves a chance, and you should see his movies. And then, if it's good, it's good. If it's not,
no, I agree. I'm absolutely going to be there first day. The trailers haven't really done a whole lot for me. So
I hope they're holding something back that would be genuinely surprised with. That's my only caveat to that is if they're actually holding something back that we are totally shocked by, then it'll be worth it.
I think so too. Hopefully it'll be a big.
The other topic that I haven't brought up with you, but I would be very much interested in doing it, is a Masters of the Universe show in anticipation for the new movie.
We just have to watch the original Masters of the Universe movie.
And there is the animated film, The Secret of the Sword.
Okay. Yeah. When's it come out?
I believe it's also somewhere around like June.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
We have a lot of catching up to do if we're going to beat the amount of episodes we did last year, which I think is our goal. So we're trying. Yep. We're trying, everybody.
Okay. So we got some stuff in the pipeline.
We do. All right, man. Great to talk to you as always. I'll see you soon. Thank you guys for tuning in. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Ryan's channel and mine, Cinecrisis and Film Journal. And we will see you later.